Live from the Pioneer PBS studios in Granite Falls, it's Meet the Candidates. This candidate forum is designed to inform you, the viewing public, about the candidates running for Minnesota state office in our region. Meet the Candidates is brought to you by the members of Pioneer PBS. This program features the candidates for Minnesota House District 16A. And now, your moderator for tonight's program, Mark Fokin.
Hello, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm Mark Fokin. This Pioneer PBS presentation is intended to inform you about the candidates who seek election or re-election to the Minnesota legislature. This segment features candidates who are on the ballot in House District 16A. They are Republican Representative Chris Swedzinski and his challenger, DFL candidate Doria Drost. First, a few words about the district and the communities within it.
Minnesota House District 16A is made up all of Lac qui Parle and Yellow Medicine counties and portions of Lyon and Redwood counties. Major cities include Marshall, Canby, and Madison.
If you reside in this district, your questions will be given priority for the candidates' answers. All Minnesotans, regardless of residency, are encouraged to join this conversation. Our intention is to let our viewers gain an understanding of legislative priorities. Please direct your questions to the methods listed on the bottom of the screen. Now, let's meet tonight's candidates. By a coin toss, the candidates have determined the order in which they will appear with their opening statement. We will start with incumbent Representative Chris Swedzinski of Ghent.
Hi, I'm State Representative Chris Swedzinski. I just want to thank all the good people here at Pioneer Public Television and all the good viewers out there for taking the time and tuning into tonight's conversation. We have some unique issues that are facing our state, and I just appreciate the time that you take. I'm running for re-election because my wife and I and 5 kids, we absolutely love Southwest Minnesota. And Southwest Minnesota needs a strong voice in St. Paul. We've seen what the metro-centric Democrats can do when they have their way with environmental rules and agriculture and the rest. And we need folks that are going to stand strong for our way of life and our rural way of living. And I just appreciate all that Pioneer Public Television does for our region, and I appreciate being able to support that at the legislature and support you as well. And I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now his DFL challenger from Lind, Doria Drost.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and thank you to Pioneer PBS for holding this evening's debate. My name is Doria Drost. I'm a resident of Lind, Minnesota, and I grew up on a farm right outside of Worthington, Minnesota. I helped my father start his small trucking business from the ground up, and I moved to the Marshall area to start college at Southwest Minnesota State University, where I graduated with a bachelor's in marketing and political science, and I'm currently finishing my master's in business administration. The reason that I'm running is because I understand that rural Minnesota does need a strong voice. We need leaders that are transparent in their leadership and that truly listen to the needs of their people. My opponent has been blatantly disconnected from this district the past 10 years that he served, and that reflects in the disparities that rural Minnesota is seeing in comparison to the metropolitan area. I've advocated for the last 6 years on behalf of affordable health care and housing, investments into public education, and support for small and mid-sized farmers. And that advocacy work, in conjunction with the conversations that I've had with people all around District 16A, are what I plan to bring to the Capitol if elected. I hope to earn your vote this November, and I want to encourage all of you to expect more from your leaders.
Thank you, Doria. Before we start with the questions, just a quick reminder to the viewers at home that you can learn how to register to vote in Minnesota and find your voting location on the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. And you'll find that at mnvotes.org. Now, let's get started. As a reminder, the rules are that each question will be asked to both candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Both candidates will also have the opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal if they so choose. We will alternate which candidate gets asked each question first. Now let's start with our first question, and it goes to Chris Swidzinski, and it comes to us from a viewer in Canby. This viewer asks, relationships with locally elected officials are exceptionally important as a legislator. What have you done or what can be done to help cultivate them?
Well, that's a really good question. I think the bedrock of being a good legislator is really having a great relationship with locally elected officials. I think one of the premier goals of mine has continually been is to press as much power out of St. Paul, and I wish Washington, D.C., but back to locally elected officials, whether it be school board members, City Hall, or county commissioners. I've got a great working relationship with all the county commissioners, really throughout the district, whether it be Lac Parle, Yellow Medicine, Lyon, or Redwood. But we do that by really going out of our way to hold town hall meetings in a lot of the communities that I represent. Since I've been in the legislature, I've done over 100 town hall meetings just to hear the voices of what people are hearing and what people are talking about, but also having opportunities to meet with county commissioners and city council members. We host meetings up in St. Paul and in the districts, and consistently attending meetings, I think, is a bedrock, but also attending events. I can't tell you how many events I've been at over the years, just having a very infrequent, a very frank conversation behind closed doors or sometimes out in public about the issues that we're facing. So, getting out and, I'm constantly, a lot of times calling county commissioners. We have Todd Patzer, who is the chair of the County Commissioners Association in the state of Minnesota. That's a great responsibility that we have local elected officials that are not only representing locally, but doing a great job representing us at a statewide level. And so developing those relationships really is important to that. And being on a first name basis with most of the county commissioners, I think is an exceptionally taking that portion. But then down to city council members and school board members. Every single year, we host a meeting at the school board's convention up in Minneapolis, where those school board members, it didn't happen this year, but in years past, where all the school board members and school administrators can come and we can talk about issues and what's important to education. And I think that's just a great way, is being visible, but also having an open ear to the concerns that they have.
Thank you, Chris. And Doria, the same question goes to you. How would you respond to this viewer from Canby? Relationships with locally elected officials are exceptionally important as a legislator. What have you done, or what can be done, to help cultivate them?
It's very important for our elected officials to be accessible to their constituents. Opening those methods and channels of communication for people is a necessary need that we have to advocate for if elected. For example, just on this campaign trail over the past 10 months, I've made it my goal to respond to anybody's questions within the same day, if not within the hour. Making sure that they understand where I stand on the issues is very critical, and making sure that they feel heard and that their feedback is really what drives our policies at the state level is a critical need that us as elected officials need to be responsible to uphold. My opponent has been inaccessible the past 10 years he's been in office, and that's very disheartening, especially as we see the historical data of how he votes against issues that are directly influencing and impacting his constituents. He's voted against education funding when rural school districts are suffering. He's voted against affordable health care when access to health care facilities in Southwest Minnesota are slim to none. That shows a lot of what he thinks of the people of Southwest Minnesota and their ideas and their needs. I've read letters to the editor that have specifically called out the fact that he's ignored their repeated letters and phone calls. He's left school board invitation requests unanswered, and that is simply unacceptable, especially coming from an incumbent. When I have people tell me that I've answered more of their questions in the past 2 weeks than he's answered in the past 2 years, that says something. And we need to make sure that when we elect people, we are electing people that care about the folks here in Southwest Minnesota, that are involved with their communities. I'm proud to be from Southwest Minnesota. I volunteer in our communities running blood drives. I work in our community schools, and I make it a point to meet with people as regularly as possible.
Thank you, Doria. And now we'll return to Representative Swedzinski for a 1-minute rebuttal.
You know, I think, obviously legislating is tough work, but it's also rewarding work. And some of the best work that we do is working with school boards. And, when having meetings with school board members, one of the biggest issues that I hear from them is saying, Chris, we have piles of regulations, piles of paperwork that we need to do for the state. And one of the biggest issues they have is the big funding gap they have between rural and metro schools. That's one of the biggest issues I hear over and over again. And the latest education bill, which I did vote against, expanded that gap between our rural and metro schools. We all got a little bit more, but it made that gap wider. And so you're going to hear over and over how I hate rural schools, and that's simply not the case. And I think one of the issues, when we even had a budget deficit the last time, which was I think over $6 billion, I fought hard to make sure that our small schools, those schools with 500 kids or less, which is a vast majority of our schools in rural Minnesota, got more money out of that budget. And I think that's one of the things that we need to focus on is how do we deliver more dollars, not to Metro, but to our good, solid, strong rural schools. And that's what I do, and that's how I vote.
Thank you, Chris. And now we'll return to Ms. Drost for a 1-minute rebuttal.
I find it interesting that my opponent brings up his dedication to providing school funding when he has been on the record just recently proposing a 20% funding cut to public education. He's also voted against bills that directly invest in our K-12 public education system, as well as our public state universities. Most recently, he voted against the state bonding bill, which had over $90 million associated specifically to invest in Minnesota State public colleges and universities. He's also voted against multiple higher education funding bills, and he's voted against multiple public school education funding bills. And that is unacceptable. I'm proud to be endorsed by Education Minnesota, not just because I believe in protecting and investing more into public education, but because I understand the needs of not just our educators, but of our students.
Thank you, Doria. Our next question goes first back to you, and it comes to us from a viewer in Ghent. So, Ms. Drost, how would you respond to this viewer? With businesses struggling with the COVID shutdown, what are your plans to help struggling businesses recover?
When we look at the recovery and coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, small businesses need to be at the forefront of those conversations. When you look at how the state approached COVID mandates, a lot of those mom and pop shops were shut down, even though their corporate counterparts were allowed to stay open. And that's very disheartening, especially because we are constantly battling with corporate versus small businesses. What we need to do to support our small businesses is make the system more equitable for them. This includes reforming the property tax regulations on small businesses so that we are not degrading all of their profit margins, making it unsustainable for them to last more than 1 to 2 years. The majority of small businesses shut down within 5 years, and that is critically disappointing for our local communities. In fact, I have policy proposals that would directly invest into a revolving loan and grant program for small businesses, starting up with 5 or fewer employees, which is the majority of our small businesses here in District 16A. I'm very disappointed that in addition to the other voting record items I've already mentioned tonight, my opponent decided to vote against COVID-19 relief funding, specifically to provide financial relief to our small businesses across Minnesota. This is unacceptable, and we need to do more because small businesses are the drivers of our local economies, especially in rural Minnesota.
Thank you, Doria. And now, Representative Swedzinski, the same question to you. With businesses struggling with the COVID shutdown, what are your plans to help those struggling businesses recover?
You know, I think that is some of the biggest issues I heard when visiting with business owners is often tears. And when they saw their friends and neighbors driving past their business shops to go to Walmart or go to Menards when they were closed down. I can tell you how many folks are heartbroken because of those months lost when those opportunities are probably gone forever. And I think some of the basic things that we need to do as a state is the foundational, and Dory brought it up, is the statewide business property tax. And some of the work that I've been very diligent in working on is cutting the statewide business property taxes for those small and medium, and actually all businesses across the state. And so if you're a small business where your building is worth approximately $150,000, a portion of your state property tax that you would pay to the state is gone. And so if your business is worth $900,000 or $1 million, essentially your tax reflection is going to be about $850 million. So that first $150 million, which is a vast majority of our small cities and towns, our Main Street businesses, that's gone. And so that burden is off your shoulders. But also just understanding what it is to be a small business owner and the work and the sweat. A lot of the boutiques and a lot of those folks are women-owned, but a lot of the folks that had their businesses burnt down in Minneapolis were minority-owned businesses. And so how can we address the issues across the state when it comes to business by eliminating a lot of regulation? I just got off the phone with some good folks, kind of an agricultural but also a downtown business issue of those small town butcher shops. With an agricultural surplus and a lot of independent businesses, the butcher shops are plump full. And so we're looking at ways and how can we direct dollars to get them to make it easier for opening up a butcher shop, get it easier to have the regulations, because oftentimes it's hundreds of thousands of dollars just to replace the floor. So looking at unique ways to get minority-owned businesses and businesses of need, such as butcher shops, back in the market.
Thank you, Chris. And now we'll return to Doria for a 1-minute rebuttal.
I'm glad that my opponent brought up the butcher shop issue here in Minnesota. I was actually on a call with Land Stewardship Action Fund members, and one of the things that we talked about across the board, especially when you look at the disparities between small and mid-sized farms and the insurgence of factory farms, is meat processing. I mean, coming from the Worthington area, JBS is the only meat processor down in southwest Minnesota that I'm aware of, and the next closest would be across the border in Sioux Falls. And what's interesting is Minnesota does not have any butcher training program in place, which makes it very difficult to get any butcher shops off the ground. And we need to really focus at that at the state level, making sure that we do have those training programs in place. That way we can allow for locally owned butcher shops to open by providing them the necessary supports and resources. And I'm surprised that if my opponent was aware of this issue, that he wouldn't think of that sooner.
Thank you. Our next question goes first to Representative Swedzinski, and it comes to us from a viewer in Marshall. What do you recommend we cut from the state budget to help balance it out?
Well, that's probably the biggest thing facing our state legislature, whoever is elected this coming November. We're looking at about a $5.2 billion surplus. That's what's just on the books, and it's potentially going to be even higher. So one of the issues that was brought up earlier was, Chris, you voted against the bonding bill, which I did. One of the biggest issues I had with that, I worked diligently on getting a lot of projects in that bill, but it simply wasn't paid for. So a credit card is simply something that you use to buy stuff, right? That's what the state's essentially doing in a bonding bill. It's like, I don't have the money in my pocket. I'm going to go out and borrow money so I can build a school or the tower here at Pioneer Public Television, which is a bill I carried, and just last week it was put up, which is pretty interesting. But it adds to the budget deficit. And so there's hundreds of millions of dollars more in the budget shortfall that's facing us not only in this biennium that hasn't been taken care of, but in the next. So you could be pragmatic, but also you have to look forward and say, you know what, when you run out of field to plow, it's maybe time to stop plowing your field. And let's at least have some common sense when it comes to budgetary issues, because they're going to be rough. And there's efficiencies in government that we can look at. There's also issues across the state. My opponent also said, Chris, you proposed to cut 20% from education. And if my opponent would actually listen to the entire interview, they said, what are you hearing from your constituents? When I met with school board members and I proposed to them a voluntary program that said, one of the issues you keep talking about is we have all this regulation at the state level. And I said, what would you think to say if we got rid of the state regulation and allow locally elected officials, school board members who are locally elected, to choose to have no state regulation, allow school board members to make the decision, but receive 20% less money by choice of their own volition, would you, and almost by far, all the hands raised in the room. But obviously that's a far stretch, and so when I was speaking about that, that's what my opponents are trying to address and whatever, so.
Thank you, Chris. And now, Doria, the same question to you. What do you recommend we cut from the state budget to help balance it out?
We definitely do need to find efficiencies, as Chris stated. One of the efficiencies that I've heard about just talking with local construction unions is the fact that a lot of the state-funded construction projects are allowed to be bid on by out-of-state construction companies. So the costs for those projects are actually leaving Minnesota and going across the border to North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa. And that's very problematic. What I would like to do is actually make it so that only Minnesota-based construction companies can bid on state-funded projects. That way we're keeping those construction dollars in-house. Additionally, when my opponent brought up that 20% education funding, I find it very outraging that in order to propose cutting public education, you're going to give school boards and districts an ultimatum. Why can we not find a middle ground working across the aisle to not only secure funding for our public education without providing cuts to it, but also allowing loosening of those regulations so that our school districts can really alleviate the stressors that they are experiencing. We should not have ultimatums for something that is so fundamental and so critical for our future generations. Additionally, when it looks at finding efficiencies in our state budget, we need to do things like investing in our infrastructure, investing in our education systems, which is what that bonding bill that my opponent voted against did. It had increasing and overwhelming bipartisan support by both the Minnesota House and Senate, reaching across party lines because of how well structured it was with its funding allocations. And yes, short term, it does increase our deficit. But when you look long term, as elected officials need to when they're forming these policies and these mandates, it creates jobs which are going to drive us out of the budget deficit, and they are going to close the disparity gaps that our rural communities are facing.
Thank you, Doria. Our next question goes first back to you, and this viewer asks, what will you do to make mental health care a priority in rural areas?
Mental health is a huge need here in rural Minnesota. We lack healthcare facilities that are targeted towards mental health needs, and a lot of folks often have to take off work to receive healthcare resources and take children out of school to receive those services because they have to travel all the way up to the metropolitan area. I feel something that the state should do just on the most basic level is work to create more accessible facilities down here in rural Minnesota and Southwest Minnesota communities. We also need to look big picture. Those populations that are most at risk for mental health are people of color, they're people involved in our agricultural industry, and there are students. My opponent voted against a regulation to require schools to have anti-bullying policies. When you're looking at young people, they are facing significantly more challenges than past generations have faced. So having those anti-bullying policies in place to prevent mental health struggles is critical. And it's something so basic that we can do to alleviate the stressors on our educators and our students. We also should be investing in our agricultural mental health resources. Right now, the state only has 2 employees for the entire state of Minnesota specialized in addressing mental health concerns for farmers. We need to not only increase that number, but we also need to look at creating regional councils that can connect farmers with local mental health resources. And finally, we need to lower the opportunity and achievement gaps for communities and people of color. This includes looking at creating accessible opportunities for housing, for employment, for high quality education, and for healthcare. Without these basic needs being met, you're going to see a spike in mental health disparities. And that's something that our state is tasked with addressing, and it's something that my opponent has failed to bring to the table.
Thank you, Doria. Chris, the same question to you. What will you do to make mental health care a priority in rural areas?
Well, I think when you look at agriculture, it's one of the biggest areas where we're seeing a lot of suicides, when you're seeing any areas in the economy which are suffering. I was a primary carrier 2 years ago. It was Gene Poppy, myself, and Jeff Backer, all local rural legislators that carried bills to increase the amount of funding for one of the two folks that do mental health specifically for agricultural minded folks. And I think those are some of the biggest things that we can possibly do. But also listen to locally elected officials. And I find it interesting, in one side of one person's mouth you say you want to reduce regulation, but you want to listen to our rural elected officials. But at the same time, when local schools have their own bullying policies, they say, Chris, please do not put another state mandate, which is what they say. They said, please don't give us another state mandate. Would you please allow our own policies to take hold so that we can understand what we're doing here in Southwest Minnesota? Don't give us a statewide mandate. Every area of the state is different. Please don't give us another one. And I vote no. Somehow that's saying I support bullying. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, I think we all understand that high school is a very difficult place to live. I wish we could take our kids' phones that have them in school and chuck them out the window, because there's a lot of online issues that every single morning I talk to school superintendents and they say, Chris, if we could simply get to deal with just the issues we deal with on campus, it would be a blessing. But oftentimes parents have let things go through the whole weekend and they blow up at school Monday morning. And who's to pick up the pieces? It's our school counselors, it's our superintendents, our principals, and our teachers. And sadly, the whole classroom sometimes fails because parents potentially aren't doing their job at home. And the state's not going to fix that by having a statewide mandate.
Thank you, Chris. Now we'll return to Doria for a 1-minute rebuttal.
I don't think my opponent really understands what I was getting at with bringing up the anti-bullying policies. By passing a state mandate stating that school districts should be required to have an anti-bullying policy, you're not forming that policy for them. It allows them the flexibility to create plans for their own districts and their own needs. It simply just asks, please pass some sort of anti-bullying policy so that your children's mental health, your students' mental health can be protected. I've been endorsed by Education Minnesota because I understand these comprehensive needs and these really diverse needs. And something that they even suggested that I would completely be in favor of is a multi-tiered system of support for school districts that looks at students as a whole and not just as a number or a statistic, and connects them with the appropriate support services that they need within schools.
Thank you, Doria. Our next question goes first to Representative Swedzinski, and it comes from Paul Lanou, the Dean of Agriculture and Business at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. So, Chris, how would you respond to Paul's question? Agriculture is the lifeblood of Southwest Minnesota. What can be done to support agricultural endeavors, agribusiness investment, and educational opportunities?
Well, I think, I actually agree. I love Paul. He's a great asset to Minnesota West. I think some of the foundational things that we need to do is to just expand agricultural education. And so I'm proud of the fact that one of the bills that I carried in the past was to help Southwest Minnesota State in Marshall really become regionally significant by adding an agricultural education program. We brought over $500,000 to really jumpstart that program so that those students don't travel off to North Dakota or the cities or Iowa to get an ag education degree, but can do it right here. And I think that is one of the most fundamental benefits that we have by having a college, is by having one that will keep young people here and being regionally significant. I think, adding opportunities when it comes to banking. So having ways where we can bring young people into agriculture and minorities into agriculture. We have beautiful Hmong populations that are gardening and participating in our farmers markets and the rest. And agriculture isn't just a 40-20 anymore. It's not a 96-60 combine either. And so, but sometimes it's done by hand. And so I recognize that agriculture is a diverse, but also standing up for large agriculture and small and everyone in between. I think when it looks at jobs, you look at opportunity. I think every small farmer wishes to be a bigger one. And sometimes they're a bigger one. And we need to look at a state regulation that treats all farmers the same, no matter what size they are. And guess what? When they are small or they're big, they say, you know what? I wish I had less regulation. I wish I had more opportunity. And so giving young farmer grants, tax incentives to landowners. So and then also working on the estate. One of the biggest issues that we have is the estate tax when it comes to agriculture, and that ability to pass that farm on to the next generation. And I think from a taxable standpoint, we need to make those laws easier so that you don't have to sell the farm so that Junior can farm.
Thank you, Chris. Doria, the same question to you. How would you respond to Paul? Agriculture is the lifeblood of Southwest Minnesota. What can be done to support agricultural endeavors, agribusiness investment, and educational opportunities?
A large part of it does have to do with education. And when you look at education funding, when you cut funding for public schools, a lot of the first programs to go are the arts and agriculture, which is why it's so important for us to protect this funding for our K through 12 programs. Additionally, you also need to look at the current inhibitions for young farmers to get involved. And a lot of that has to do with not wanting to stay in their local rural communities. One of the proposals that I have is actually a Community Reinvestment Act that would create loan forgiveness for students that did choose to seek a higher education in order to really have them settle down in rural areas with lower populations, with more opportunity outlook for getting involved in the agricultural industry and really setting down their roots, which not only helps more people get involved within agriculture, but it also helps retain populations for our rural towns. Additionally, we also need to look at the mental health stressors for farmers, especially when they try to transition to the next generation. By allowing more resources for farmers with mental health and with community resources, with transitioning, whether it's with somebody that wants to take over the farm in their family or somebody outside of their family, we need to really find ways to ease that transition. And a part of that does have to do with making the estate tax more equitable when it comes to farmland. Another part of this has to do with right to repair legislation, just allowing farmers more ease to really take control of their land and of their equipment without having to spend thousands of dollars at a shop to repair a tractor or to completely replace equipment. And lastly, what we also need to do is look at the current legislation that has been passed that does disproportionately affect our small and mid-sized farmers because they're up against a lot more than our insurgents of factory farms. They have more financial stressors.
Thank you, Doria. Our next question goes first back to you, and it comes to us from a viewer in Marshall. What measures will you endorse to help expand biofuel production in rural Minnesota?
Biofuel production is a huge source of revenue for the state of Minnesota, and it's very critical for our agricultural industry. I'd like to really expand the development of biodiesels across Minnesota in order to create more facilities that can do the biodiesel processing. That way we can export it and really drive ourselves out of our budget deficit. One of the things that I've been considering is the 22 acres that is currently out of service in Appleton because of their prison facility that is there. And a lot of the gridlock that has occurred in St. Paul over recent years is how best to reopen that facility. And it's really stayed within whether or not to open it as a public or a private prison. But I feel that that 22 acres could be reutilized, whether that be in a community resource center or whether that be in a biodiesel manufacturing facility. And those are all sorts of things that we need to look at when we look at expanding what our state is currently doing. Biodiesel is one of our leading exports here in Minnesota, and we really need to work to increase access into the biodiesel industry as well as expanding our overall production.
Thank you, Doria. Now, Chris, the same question to you. What measures will you endorse to help expand biofuel production in rural Minnesota?
Well, I think biofuel is not only biodiesel, but also ethanol. And if you go to Marshall, ADM is one of the biggest job producers in our state, but also come to Granite Falls, and we have the Fagans, which have benefited tremendously and given tremendously to that industry, and actually by just building this building. So we want to thank the family and and what biofuels did for this community. Some of the work, I think, also is access. And so a lot of my work has been focused on is when you have a lot of mom and pop shops or even just a lot of chain stores when it comes to selling ethanol. So the state of Minnesota has a grant program that essentially helps gas stations purchase the fuel blenders. So those unique pumps that can handle E15 or E30 or E85. And so that people will have that choice. It's one thing to go to a plant and say, you know what, it's 10% coming out of the tank and that's all you get. I'm often running higher levels of ethanol in my own pickup truck, and I would encourage everyone else to do the same. But I think those are the biggest issues that we can also have is how do we fundamentally gain access to biofuels in a major way. And that's simply pushing E85, E15, through the metro by allowing pipes, and I think that's one of the things the state of Minnesota can do, is actually just invest and help invest to make those pumps more available and more affordable for the folks that actually sell the fuel. And I think one of the biggest things we can do to help expand biofuels is really call Governor Walz and say, please do not join Governor Gavin Newsom and join this ridiculous mandate to get rid of all fossil fuels. Guess what? Whether it's gasoline or ethanol, ethanol is not going to be sold if gasoline doesn't exist. And so give Governor Walz a call. You've heard about it in the newspapers, you've heard about it on television, and he wants to join a consortium of states to follow California rulemaking when it comes to biofuels and fuels in use in general.
Thank you, Chris. Our next question goes back to you again first. And it comes to us from a viewer in Echo here in Yellow Medicine County. And this viewer wants to know, how do you feel about the red flag law?
Boy, the red flag law is an interesting one because it really eliminates a lot of opportunity for due process. And I think it's touted as something that's going to just simply save lives, take guns out of people's hands, but really the rule of law is important. And I think when you're talking about fundamental things such as free speech, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, we need to tread exceptionally carefully when we're dealing with constitutional rights. And while I believe that no one wants to have a dangerous person with a gun, but when there's no due process, when the opportunity for fraud can happen and say, you know what, I really don't like that person, I'm going to call them in, and they have their Second Amendment stripped away from them. We need to look very carefully at what those laws will do and what they could potentially mean to our Second Amendment.
Thank you, Chris. Now, Doria, the same question to you. How do you feel about the red flag law?
I believe the red flag law is an adequate solution to a difficult conversation. I am all for protecting our Second Amendment rights, but we need to look at who has access to these firearms and whether or not that is the safe route for them to have access to firearms. What the red flag law aims to do is it looks at an individual who has access to a firearm that is deemed dangerous by people close to them as well as in a court of law. I mean, when you look at the criminal justice system, it's very important for us to be making sure that we are being equitable for people. And I think that is what this red flag law is really aiming to do, is to not say, no, you are not allowed to have a gun. It's simply saying, you are an unsafe individual. We need to rethink whether or not you are ready to have a gun. Another part of this has to do with just overall gun safety. I mean, if we can be proactive in our legislation by making sure that we are adequately doing background checks and mental health checks for people before they purchase a firearm, it can do away with a lot of this red flag law conversation. But unfortunately, our system just currently isn't set up to be equitable in those areas.
Thank you, Doria. Our next question goes first to you, back to you again, and it comes to us from a viewer in Marshall, was phoned in. What do you value more, lower taxes or affordable, accessible health care?
I would like to find a way to have both. If I had to choose between the two, I would say affordable health care, because health care is a human right. My opponent has voted against multiple healthcare reform bills, including the Alex Smith Emergency Insulin Act and the Prescription Pricing and Transparency and Prescription Drug Act, which both hold Big Pharma accountable for creating disparities in our healthcare system. That's very disappointing. Obviously, nobody wants higher taxes. I mean, Minnesota is one of the highest tax states in the US. I'd actually like to find ways for us to make our tax systems more equitable for the low income and middle class folk, because it is unfair and it is unjust. We do need access to affordable health care. It is something that is increasingly inaccessible here in Southwest Minnesota. I mean, when I was talking with folks all around the district these past few months, one of the biggest things that we don't have access to in Southwest Minnesota is autism resources and autism therapies and services. And that's really disheartening, because we do have a lot of need here in Southwest Minnesota. I mean, people, as I've said earlier, are taking full days off of work, are taking their children out of school for entire days just to have access to the basic healthcare services for their day-to-day lives. That is inexcusable, and it's something that really shows the disparities that here in Southwest Minnesota we're facing in comparison to the metropolitan area. We need to find ways to increase access to healthcare and making sure that that healthcare is affordable. I have policy proposals that specifically target removing surprise medical bills so that people understand exactly what they are paying for, and have been proven in other areas that have passed them to lower the overall cost of healthcare.
Thank you, Doria. And now, Chris, how would you respond to this viewer from Marshall? What do you value more, lower taxes or affordable, accessible health care?
Well, I think anyone would agree seeing rural hospitals closed down is an absolute tragedy. We've seen hospitals being purchased in small towns and then closed down. That is exceptionally disappointing. I think that's a very interesting question, a great way to put it, because oftentimes we view affordable health care. We all want affordable health care, but oftentimes what that means when government does it is shift the cost to someone else. So I think the way to get at the issues of making healthcare actually more affordable, actually cheaper, is what can actually accomplish that goal is probably one of the best things that we can do. And so, tort reform, looking at issues in which, there's a case in Wilmer that I just heard about in the news a few years ago, where a lawsuit, the hospital's insurance covered them up to $10 million. And the jury went out on a civil lawsuit and was able to sue the hospital for $22 million. That $12 million was any potential profit that hospital is going to make on delivering babies for the next 5 to 10 years. And so how do we manage that system? Because insurance is good to have, but if it doesn't cover you as a hospital, you have to pass that cost on to the rest of the consumers. And I think you look at the government programs when it comes to health care. On the dollar, they refund the actual cost to hospitals and doctors about 60% of actual cost. So that other 40% of cost gets passed on to private pay or private insured people. So how are you going to actually decrease the cost of healthcare, not just shift the cost to other people? I think lower taxes are exceptionally important. And I think the way you can do that is also to focus it on doctors and nurses. I think, to get those people with the skill sets we need in rural Minnesota, on average, they have to pay, if the doctor's moving from South Dakota to Minnesota, they have to recruit them and pay them over 10% more money in order to get them to Southwest Minnesota, just so they're making the same amount. So I think we should be eliminating taxes almost completely on doctors and nurses so that they can operate and compete, and we can have the skill sets here we need in Southwest Minnesota.
Thank you, Chris. And now we'll return to Doria for a 1-minute rebuttal.
It's interesting to bring up the topic of insurance, because privatized insurance has caused a lot of issues when it comes to promoting healthcare access and affordability. My opponent actually voted against a bill to create a Minnesota Health Insurance Exchange, which is very interesting to think about when you look at how stark the contrast is between insurance coverage in metropolitan areas and rural areas. One of the policy proposals that I've written would actually hold privatized insurance companies accountable for providing coverage before, during, and after treatment. And it would also it would also regulate them so that they are not allowed to deny coverage to an individual due to a pre-existing condition. And those are all interconnected aspects of healthcare that we need to look at when we are creating these policies, because a lot of situations are not black and white, and privatized insurance is making it seem that way with how high they charge premiums for aspects of a person's life and body that they cannot control.
Thank you, Doria. Now we'll return to Chris for a 1-minute rebuttal.
This is just more of an extra comment of some work we've done. I think one of the issues that we've worked on is also bringing cooperatives, and cooperatives are the bedrock of some of our rural businesses and communities, and allowing them to create, essentially their own healthcare exchanges. I worked with Representative Tim Miller on the aspect of bringing cooperatives so that they are allowed to sell a product, and also maybe non-insurance based healthcare where you can actually just group your stuff together and make sure that those are allowed within the state of Minnesota. I think some of the issues we have beyond that just need to have a conversation, and I'm happy to do that and look forward to a great conversation on healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That is all the time we have for questions. And so, as we conclude our debate, we are going to move to closing statements, and we'll hear first from the DFL challenger, Doria Drost of Lind.
I just want to say thank you all once again for tuning into tonight's debate. Thank you for all of your wonderful questions, and thank you to Pioneer PBS for hosting this forum here tonight. I'm proud to be running to represent you in the House of Representatives. I have real action plans that I want to bring to the state level after hearing from all of the needs of people right here in District 16A. I want to champion affordable health care, education investment, and support for our small and mid-sized farmers. I also feel that we must invest within our infrastructure systems down here in rural Minnesota if we really want to drive economically long-term here in rural communities. I am disappointed with my opponent and his service to our district these last 10 years. He's voted against a lot of good things that people right here in rural Minnesota would benefit from. He's consistently been inaccessible to voters that I've talked to, and he's ignored areas of need from his constituents, including invitations to talk about education discussions, invitations to talk about affordable health care and housing, and invitations just to be accessible as an elected official. We deserve more out of our leaders. We deserve leaders that are transparent, which is why I am proud to not only be open to having these conversations with folks here in our district, but to also make sure that they know exactly where I stand on the issues and the plans that I have if elected. My name is Doria Drost, and I hope to earn your vote November 3rd.
Thank you, Doria. And now we'll hear a 2-minute closing statement from the incumbent, Representative Chris Swedzinski.
Hi, everyone in Pioneer Land, State Representative Chris Swedzinski. I just want to thank you again for tuning in to tonight's program and this conversation we had. You can tell very clearly that St. Paul is sometimes a very difficult place to get along, but I've worked very hard to work across party lines and really trying to come up with common sense solutions. And oftentimes, one of the first things that I learned in St. Paul was that there's a big difference between an idea and a good idea. And representing Southwest Minnesota and representing agribusiness and business in all small cities and towns, I'm endorsed by the NRA, I'm endorsed by MCCL, I'm 100% pro-life. I'm endorsed by the Minnesota Retailers Association, the Minnesota Farm Bureau, and the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. I've received awards for my work with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and I've won many awards and gotten accolades for my work for the League of Minnesota Cities as well, on environmental issues and tax issues and the rest. And so the idea that having over 100 town hall meetings is somehow being inaccessible, it's just part of the game, folks. And I do appreciate the opportunity to serve you in St. Paul, and I would ask you for your vote this November, and so that we continue to represent agriculture and our rural way of life in a great way. Thanks all, and have a great night.
Thank you, Chris. That concludes our program. Thanks to both candidates for joining us, and a special thanks to our viewers who sent along their questions. To watch this and other Meet the Candidates episodes, past or present, visit video.pioneer.org. or use the free PBS video app. Just choose Pioneer PBS as your local station. Thank you for joining us on Meet the Candidates.